Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. We're so glad that you could join us today. Just a reminder, this is, a browser-based platform. So if you're having weird connection problems, you can always ask a question in the chat and get some help. But sometimes just refreshing your browser will do the job. So it's kind of the thing I go to first. Today, we're going to talk about taking software testing to the next level with AI. It's some pretty cool stuff. I'm Arthur Hicken. I'm the evangelist at Parasoft. With me is Adams. Hello, Adam.
Good
Welcome.
morning. Good morning. Good morning.
And
Thank
Adam's
you for joining
product
us.
manager at Parasoft, and he's going to be showing us real stuff. So it's kind of cool. Wanted to do a quick intro on some of the Parasoft stuff for those who are not familiar with this. We've been in business for over 35 years. We've won a whole bunch of awards recently. We were the leader in the Forrester Wave for continuous automation testing platforms. We're the leader in the IDC MarketScape for worldwide cloud testing. If you go on places like G2, you'll find lots of interesting reviews that people have about the software. So feel free to go and poke some of those and learn more about what we're doing. The core to what we're doing is the Parasoft Continuous Quality Platform, and there's a variety of capabilities in there, ranging from code analysis all the way through functional test automation, API test automation. And at the heart of it is this common platform piece that has analytics, integration, intelligence, and policy. And in fact, the beauty of the platform is that what it does is actionable, meaning that it can drive results back into the IDE. It can drive them into systems of record. It can push them onto desktop, into reports. So everything that happens can be part of a normalized workflow to make sure that everything's very efficient. It's an open platform, so obviously our tools connect to it, but you can connect a variety of, for example, of open source tools for source scanners, etc., to it, and you can pull the data out of it if you have a different system of record. So it's a very flexible system with APIs to do what you want to do. And it's an intelligence system. And a lot of what you see today, we're going to talk about various AI capabilities, and the system is doing its best to help make sure that it can create accurate reports. It can help you prioritize and triage and determine what's important for you to work on and things like that. So some very cool capabilities. Now, I want to always address kind of the elephant in the room, right? Like, for the last few years, everything has gone online. Things that were never intended to be online have gone online because people are at home. And so suddenly things have to be online to be accessible. And what's really happened is this digital transformation people have been talking about for years has suddenly really accelerated and is delivering the promise. But with that comes a variety of different kinds of challenges. One is system downtime or production outages. And we've recently seen this, for example, with the FAA, with the notification system being out and one of the airlines having a big outage. But we see it in banking, we see it in all kinds of places. And so, yeah, once people come to rely on your system and it's available to them online, it's very important that the system is up and running. And if you have global customers, it's really important that it's up and running through a broader period of the day. Like you might need 24/7. The other thing is that testing has become way too slow for people. Systems have gotten bigger and more complex. And as you go and stand them up, it just takes too long to test before you're releasing and pushing things into production. And with today's CI/CD, and DevOps based builds, you might expect to push something live multiple times a day, maybe even multiple times an hour. And if your testing takes 16 hours, it's very hard to do a new release. So it's one of the big challenges. A lot of times things are simply untestable. There's just no way to set up a pre-production environment. And so people end up, pushing something live and then monitoring it to see if it broke and, roll it back hopefully quickly. And this is a very big challenge, making sure that you're not putting something out there that is really untenable. Another thing I like to talk about is how changes and even tiny things sometimes ripple through the system and can take the system down. Where anybody who's written code for a while or tested for a while knows that sometimes you can make the most innocuous little code change and suddenly break things elsewhere in the system. And so you need to make sure that the testing is taking into account everything possible, everything necessary to validate a change. But there are some things out there that help us meet these challenges. And one is, cloud DevOps, CI/CD tooling. And we see more and more people adopting it. It's becoming kind of the normal standard way to build things now because it's lightweight, it's fast, it's flexible, it's easy to set up test environments. It's easy for people to work in individual swim lanes without disrupting each other. So it's really been helpful for people who've adopted it well and adopted it correctly to get a lot of value out of it. Test data management is another area. If you can successfully separate your test from the code in the test, your data from the test, then it's easy to expand it, to control it, to measure it, to make sure that things are kept private, to anonymize things where necessary. So having good test data management these days is a very critical part of any real deployment strategy. And virtualization, by this I mean really what we normally call service virtualization, but a way to cut the cord for testing from real systems. So, if you have a credit card somewhere that you're taking in your system, you don't want to start testing and end up with, $1 million of credit card debt, right? So, and the same is for other things in your system, especially if you want to load test, if you want a security test, you really don't want to be including real systems all the time. And some of these test systems are expensive or difficult to set up or have to be scheduled. And sometimes the most innocuous little resource, like maybe an actual physical fax machine, is part of your solution. And you simply can't test two people at the same time on the machine. So, having a good virtualization set of capabilities and strategies can really help accelerate your testing, make it run quickly, and help you test something that you thought was untestable or was previously untestable. And again, today's topic, how do AI and machine learning in particular help us out? And there's actually a lot of different ways that AI and ML capabilities are helping us out today. From test creation to execution, expansion, by which I mean the ability to take a test and make it cover more code, more scenarios without writing more tests or bigger tests. Because of course, the cost of maintaining tests can be higher than the cost of creating the test. And so if I can make a test do more work, it's really to my advantage. Test efficiency, right? What's the smallest number of tests I can do and how much work do they do? Test maintenance, test healing is pretty interesting things. Minimal execution, cutting down noise, making sure that tests are relevant, and being able to map results of your testing to actual business risks, not just, hey, over here we have a problem and it's an input validation problem, but it's the type of a problem that could perhaps lead to system outages. And so being able to understand what is the real risk to the business of a particular problem is extremely important. So as we lay out where AI and ML can really help today, the testing pyramid becomes a useful way to look at the various capabilities. And I always like to have this extra layer in the testing pyramid. If you're used to seeing unit tests at the bottom, I feel like it really starts with building the code, right? So code analysis, looking for issues like reliability, security, safety before you even begin unit testing, that you've written code properly is an important area. And there's some really great AI ML capabilities that we have, for example, to make sure that we can prioritize findings, to make sure that, looking at historically, what have an individual team or organization's developers done so that we can help prioritize static analysis findings so that you don't get flooded from a fire hose. And also looking for things like haunt spots. What you often find in static analysis is that there'll be a particular line of code that's really at the root cause for dozens or perhaps even hundreds of violations. And instead of chasing 100 different problems, you might be able to fix a single line of code and fix a large number of violations. So using AI/ML to help you find the problems that are most important and help you understand based on your history which ones are most valuable to you and which ones can safely be ignored are very helpful techniques. Now, at the unit testing level, obviously, there's things about creating unit tests, and we all want to create unit tests. We don't want to create unit tests. We want to have unit tests. We want the system to create them. But it's also important, again, to have something to help us make sure that we can get higher coverage out of our tests. It's relatively easy to cover maybe the first third of the code. The second third requires some pretty good rigor, and that last third gets really, really difficult because it centers around obscure scenarios and breaking things and pulling plugs and disconnecting from systems and making things slow. So having AI that can help us understand how's the code used, can we create a new test case, can we extend this test case, can we convert something into parameters so that we can push into a data-driven test case. And in some cases, we might even have the question of, boy, I see this line of code in my IDE. I know I need to get here, but I don't know how to really drive a unit test case to get me there. Or it might be that I need special mocks and stubs. I need better isolation to make this test case really work well. And so we have some AI and ML capabilities that do all of these different things if you're into unit testing. And if you're not into unit testing, why not, right? Smart API test generator is something we have, and it's really cool because we take AI and machine learning to understand what's going on in an API case and then use that to create really cool tests. So I'm going to talk about that more. That the smart API test generator looks at the traffic. And if you think about going to a website and trying to buy a book, right, and you analyze what's going on behind the scenes, you'll see that lots and lots of calls are made to different things. There's tracking cookies, there's input validation, there's looking at your customer account, there's maybe looking at inventory, pulling up advertising that's related to your product. There's a whole ton of things going on. And if you simply record that and play it back, simple things like rotating ads can screw up your test case, right? Or maybe it's a different day and you've screwed up your test case. So the AI looks at the traffic, looks at what happened in a regular manual testing scenario. It watches me go in and click and add things to my cart and choose a shipping method and choose a payment method and log out. And it converts, using the AI, it converts it to a sequence of API test scenarios, understanding, oh, here's input validation. Oh, here's an item that was recovered in step 2, and then we use the ID number for that part down in step 17. And it builds me scriptless automated API tests that I can now go into my IDE and I can re-execute. I can expand them. I can share them with other people and do all kinds of really cool stuff with them. So in some sense, it's record and replay because it works like a recorder. It captures the traffic and does something intelligent. In another sense, it's way more than record and replay because it's not just playing it back and comparing visually what happened. It's really created a much more stable, scalable, reusable set of API tests that are much cheaper to run, quicker to execute, and easier to maintain. So it's really kind of cool. And in a few minutes, Adam's going to actually show us how that works. Now, one of the really cool things that we can do now that we have something that isn't, at the UI layer is maybe reuse these tests for something cool. And security is one of those areas. It's often done late in the cycle. It typically requires specialists because you have to really understand how can things be broken in order to try and break into them. So it requires special knowledge. And what we've done is we've taken our SOA test tool, now that you have these API tests, and we can connect it to an API security test configuration. So for example, we can connect you right to the OWASP ZAP tool, and ZAP is an open source free penetration testing tool. And, OWASP, if you're not familiar with it, it's the Open Web Application Security Project. It's free for nothing. Go there, learn stuff, get their tools. It's really, really cool stuff. Sometimes people have commercial penetration testing tools, so we also have an integration with Burp Suite. If you've paid good money to get a really good commercial grade tool, we can support that as well. And what's really cool is that you can simply select an API security test configuration, and it'll run a sequence of threats and attacks against your particular API test suite, execute them all on its own with a single click, and create reports that show you, what kinds of issues you have, which ones are high, medium, and low, which ones are hard to attack, so that you can understand what you need to work on. And it produces reports that the security team can review. So again, I can take someone who's a tester who knows how to do API testing or UI testing maybe, and now they can do security tests, which can then be shared with the security team, who can understand, oh, this is the most important thing. Here's what we need to do. Here's the ones that we can ignore, and help work with the remediation of those issues. So it's essentially allowing people who aren't security professionals yet to be able to participate in the security testing process, and let us do that process much, much earlier. We don't have to wait until it's deployed. We can do it beforehand. Now, another thing that we can do, and again, as we push things, everything's going live and we have more and more users of our systems, we might want to load and performance tests. So again, I can take these API tests, I can grab different groups, put them together in various load and performance scenarios. Say, I want 1,000 people browsing, and I want 10 people buying every second, or whatever it is that we want. And it can execute all these load tests, give you some deep data around what's running, how fast are things running, how are they working compared to the quality of service expectations that you have. Are things fast enough? Are they too slow? Do they get too slow in certain scenarios? Can send a detailed report again off to performance team that probably are specialists, right? And they can look at, oh, can we live with this kind of performance? Which ones do we need to fix? Where do we need to maybe update the hardware and the infrastructure, and work on remediating these items? So again, we're allowing testers to start working much earlier and be able to do things potentially before the system's even deployed, which is quite useful. Now, at the automated UI test level, probably most of you that are doing UI testing are familiar with, Selenium. We have a tool called Selenic that works on pure Selenium. There's nothing proprietary about it. All the tests that we create, you can use under regular Selenium, but it adds things like self-healing. So your Selenium tests, when they fail during a big test suite and they fail your build, it might be that maybe you changed the name of a field, and so the test could re-execute it. The system knew that, and so we have an AI to look at that and help make sure that the test isn't failing, if there's a way to make it pass, and then inform you what it changed. But also advice on things like picking good selectors for your assertions and things like that. So advice around improving the quality and stability of your tests. So it can be really helpful. Another interesting area is something that we call smart test execution. And it's really about optimization of testing. And we can even do that for manual testing. So we can look at using test impact analysis to understand, when I make a change, do I need to test everything? Are there particular things I can test? And the way that we do this sort of a change-based testing is we look at all the pieces of the code, and when you're running tests, we pay attention to which parts of the code were executed by which set of tests. And when you've changed a particular piece of code, we can go back and help you select all of the tests that correlate to the changes that you made. So you get exactly the right number of tests, no more and no less than you need to have confidence that your system is working as it should. And we can do this on unit tests in the IDE. and with CI/CD processes, so that you run only the right set of unit tests. We can do it with API tests. We can do it with the Selenium-based UI tests, and we can do it with manual tests as well. So it's really, really helpful to optimize how long it takes to get feedback when you've made a change, so you don't get that domino effect that we talked about earlier. So different capabilities at every layer of the pyramid, and we're doing the smart test execution capabilities now across the entire pyramid as well. So with that, I'd like to switch over to Adam to show us how it works. And just a reminder for everybody that sometimes, because he'll be screen sharing, if you're not in full screen mode and you're having trouble seeing, try the full screen mode. So Adam, take it away.
All right, thank you, Arthur. Good morning, good morning. So what I've got up here is in the background, I've got Test, which is our IDE-based platform for API testing. And here in the foreground, I've got a copy of our Parabank demo, which is a demonstration that we created an app so we can show you how these tests work. So one of the ways that we're going to do this today is we're going to use what's called Parasoft Recorder, which is a plugin for Chrome. And if you see here, I can record my UI actions for Selenium, but I can also record my API traffic with Test. So I'm just going to go ahead and start this recording. And I'm going to go through the process of logging in, and I'm going to go request a loan. We're going to say for $1,000 with a $10 down payment. So this is just kind of a standard banking application. I'm going to click Apply Now. And then I'm going to go back through here, and I'm going to go through and log out. So now what we put together is a test that is just applying for a loan real quick. I'm going to click Stop Recording. I'm going to give this a name. So we're going to call this one After You, Arthur. And we're going to create this test. It's going to take just a second. I'm going to get a notification from Google Chrome that says that my test has been created. And if I go back over here into the IDE, now you can see that the set of test suites, the set of tests have been created already with all of Arthur's information as that test of Arthur. Now that we've got these tests created, and I've done a couple other ones previously, you can see it can create a whole lot more tests that were a little bit more in depth if I had done a few more things. And if I want to, say, add some penetration tests here to the get customer accounts information, I can just right-click, I can click Add Output, go to Traffic Object, and add the penetration test. And click Finish. And now if we look under here, we can see that I have a penetration test that's been added to that test automatically. So now if I go through and I run this test just using the sample configuration, you can see here it's running. It takes a second to go through and do all the penetration testing. And now that that's done, I can just click Proceed to the report. And this is going to open my browser back up again. We can see here, we can see all the tests that were run. We can see any API security issues that have come from this test that I just recorded a few seconds ago. And we can see that against Zap OAuth. We can see the severity of the test and the confidence that are there. And we can see the type of tests that have been run here. So your options header is missing, storable, cacheable. So you can see all of the test information that pops up right here. Now, once you move beyond that, we can actually go into a much deeper set of analytics in what is called DTP. DTP, you can see all of your OAuth information as well as your coverage information. So there's a lot of different things that the AI can report on and give you all that information that's out there. So that's just a quick demo. You can see how quickly I created a whole set of tests, added penetration to those tests, ran the penetration test itself, and moved right through it. So with that, Arthur, I understand that I'm echoing pretty bad, so I do apologize. I'm not sure where that's coming from. But I will hand it back to you from there.
All right, thanks. It's funny, Adam. It almost seems like it's when you turn your head that it echoes more. So I'm not sure. We'll have to look at that later. But yeah, these are pretty interesting reports, right? Like it's pretty exciting stuff that you get all these various different OWASP tools. And by the way, this is our continuous testing platform that we talked about earlier, right? And these reports are all drag and drop and configurable. But I'm going to put the slides back up now and go to the next one. So again, I want to point out that we're focused on using AI and ML in lots of really simple, pragmatic ways that sit behind the scenes in many cases. You don't necessarily feel the AI or interact with the AI directly. It's just doing stuff to make your life better, whether it's test creation or test efficiency, reducing noise. You never feel noise reduction directly. It's just life just gets better, right? And so we're actively working in all of these and other areas, adding augmenting our capabilities with AI and machine learning to help give you a much better experience. Adam, I laugh when you name the test after me, because it wasn't like it was perhaps a test of me. Like, are you implying that I'm a Chat GPT chatbot? I'm not really here.
That's
But
exactly
I'm
what
a
I'm
real
implying.
person. I'm a real boy.
I'm just testing you.
Any rate, yeah, lots of interesting things that we're doing. So I do want to bring up, there's a couple of assets. If you click that little paper clip at the side of your web browser, everybody, there's some assets that we've made available to you. There's this Forrester Wave continuous automation for testing platforms, and normally you have to pay for this thing. We've got it available for you for free, so it'll talk to you about all the things that are important to a continuous automation testing platform and the Parasoft capabilities and why we were chosen as a leader. So feel free to download that thing. On the left side, we've also got this guide to AI and software testing. So again, talking about where can AI really help you today. And this isn't some pie in the sky, things that we want to do in the future. This is the real pragmatic, practical, capabilities that you can deploy right now. And there's another link too, if you want to see something specific that we talked about here but didn't show. There's a thing to request a demo, and you can always do that, and people will help you out, that you can try things out. So with that, I do want to look at some of the questions. Let's see. There was one, and Adam, I don't know if this question makes sense to you. I was just going to ask for more information from the user, but I'll read it off here. Is there a template to do impact analysis? Do you think you know what they're asking?
I'm not quite sure. I do know that when we do impact analysis, we're going to take a baseline, and we're gonna upload that baseline that's going to be provided, and then that's going to create a kind of a set of rules, and then as you run your impact analysis, it's going to run it against that baseline. So the template itself is going to be created at the user level, or the tester level. But once that's in there, once we have that base of information, then we can test against that, and then that can be updated at future times. I think that might be what they're asking there.
Okay, so if whoever asked it, if you've got further details around it, feel free to stick something in there, and we'll look at that. There was another question about requirements, right? And we didn't show that here, but can I align requirements to test code changes?
Yeah, so you can use a whole bunch of different ways with whistles or RAML files and things like that to create that baseline. And once you have your requirement set, then everything can be automated in there.
Yeah,
I think I understand that's where that's coming from.
Yeah, we can definitely connect you to the requirements for various things, right? So and in fact, a lot of customers have that built into them as a requirement, that the requirements are connected to their code for traceability, for things that are safety critical and mission critical. So yeah, we absolutely support that and connects to even various requirements management systems. Somebody was asking whether the Smart API Test Generator works only with the manual UI testing activities.
No, actually, so you can run the recorder to run your manual API testing. That Smart API can actually be run a few different ways. One is through recorder. Recorder is kind of the easiest way to do it, but you can also do it through the test itself. You can do it through virtualization, and you can record things there from within the IDE. And as I showed in the demo, we can record both the UI tests for Selenium and the API tests. So when we're recording the API test, it's actually the AI is going through all of the traffic that is moving back and forth, and that's what created. In the case that the second one I showed there, that's what created those 21 tests automatically, and that's all based off of the API traffic that's going back and forth.
Yeah, so it's really cool, right? Because with one bit of information from watching a test, whether it's a CI/CD or a manual test, we were able to create API tests, user tests, and even extend them to load and performance tests and security tests all at once.
We can even expand that into the virtualization and use those tests to help create the virtualization within Virtualize.
Right, right. So some pretty cool stuff. So, Adam, thanks. We're out of time today, but if you've got further questions, please mail them in. Send it info@parasoft.com or click that demo link. And if there's a particular topic you'd like to hear about or something you'd like to see a demo of, please let us know, and we'll adjust our future sessions based on the things that you'd like to see. And with that, thank you, everybody, and have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.